Welcome back. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a simple penny, and realizing that the tiny copper coin in your hand could actually be worth hundreds, thousands, or even more to the right collector. It sounds unbelievable, but sometimes the smallest coins carry the biggest stories. And one of those stories belongs to a coin many Americans have seen before, the 1964 D Lincoln penny. At first glance, the 1964 D Lincoln penny looks just like any other old penny. It's small, copper-colored, and easy to overlook. But for collectors and coin hunters, this coin represents an important moment in American history, a time when pennies were still made mostly of copper and billions were being produced to keep up with a growing economy. The small letter D on the coin tells us it was made at the Denver Mint, one of the major facilities responsible for producing coins for circulation across the United States. To understand the story behind this coin, we have to travel back to the early 1960s. America was experiencing rapid growth. The population was increasing, businesses were expanding, and everyday commerce required enormous numbers of coins. Pennies were especially important because they were used constantly in daily transactions. In 1964 alone, the United States Mint produced billions of Lincoln cents to keep up with demand. The Denver Mint struck more than 3 billion pennies that year, each one carrying the familiar image of President Abraham Lincoln. The Lincoln cent itself had already been around for more than 50 years by 1964. It was first introduced in 1909 to celebrate the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, making it the first American coin to feature a real historical figure. The design was created by sculptor Victor David Brenner. On the front of the coin, known as the obverse, Lincoln's portrait faces to the right. Above his head is the national motto, "In God We Trust." In front of him appears the word Liberty, and just below the year you'll see the mint mark, which in this case is the small letter D for Denver. The back of the coin, known as the reverse, displays the famous wheat ears design used from 1909 until 1958, but by 1964 the design had already changed to the Lincoln Memorial. This means the 1964 penny belongs to the Lincoln Memorial series, which ran from 1959 all the way until 2008. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial stands proudly in the center. Above it are the words United States of America, along with E pluribus unum, and along the bottom you'll find the denomination 1 cent. One of the most interesting aspects of the 1964 penny is the metal used to create it. These coins were made from a composition of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. This gave the coin its rich reddish color when new. Today, many collectors appreciate these older copper pennies because later coins would eventually use less copper and more zinc. In fact, by 1982 the composition of the penny changed dramatically, making the earlier copper coins even more appealing to collectors. Even though billions of 1964 D pennies were produced, certain versions of this coin can still be quite valuable. The reason comes down to condition, rarity within certain grades, and occasional minting errors. Most pennies that circulated for decades became worn and scratched, losing their original shine. But coins that were carefully saved, or somehow avoided heavy use, can still exist in what collectors call mint state condition. These coins may still show their original bright red luster, almost as if they were made yesterday. Collectors often classify copper pennies into 3 color categories: brown, red-brown, and full red. A fully red 1964 D penny that remains in exceptional condition can command much higher prices than a worn example. In everyday condition, this coin may only be worth a few cents more than face value. But when you move into higher grades, the story changes dramatically. Some certified examples graded at the top levels have sold for hundreds of dollars. In extremely rare cases where a coin survives in nearly perfect condition, collectors have been willing to pay even more. Auction records show that high-grade 1964 D Lincoln cents with strong red color and minimal marks can sell for several $100s, and sometimes over $1,000 when the quality is exceptional. Another reason collectors search for the 1964 D penny is the possibility of mint errors. During the coin production process, tiny mistakes sometimes happen. These mistakes create coins that look slightly different from normal ones, and collectors often value these unusual pieces far more than ordinary coins. For example, some 1964 D pennies show double die errors, where parts of the design appear slightly doubled due to a misalignment during the die creation process. This can sometimes be seen in the lettering or the numbers of the date. Other coins may display off-center strikes, where the design appears shifted because the blank planchet was not perfectly aligned when struck. These unusual coins can attract strong interest from collectors because they are much rarer than standard coins. If you think you might have a valuable 1964D penny, there are a few simple things to look for. First, examine the mint mark. The small letter D should appear just below the year 1964 on the front of the coin. Next, check the color and condition. A coin with a bright copper-red appearance and very few scratches may be worth having evaluated by a professional grading service. It's also important to be cautious about counterfeits or altered coins. Sometimes people try to add a mint mark to coins that originally did not have one. A genuine mint mark from 1964 will appear naturally integrated into the coin's surface, with consistent texture and color. If the mint mark looks glued on, oddly shaped, or raised in an unusual way, it could be a sign that the coin has been tampered with. Using a magnifying glass can help you see the details more clearly. Look closely at the date, the mint mark, and the lettering. Genuine coins from the Denver Mint will have crisp details and natural wear patterns that match the rest of the coin. There are also a few surprising facts about the year 1964 that make coins from this period especially interesting. This was the final year before major changes in American coinage occurred. Rising silver prices and economic pressures would soon lead to dramatic shifts in how coins were made. While pennies remained copper-based for several more years, other coins like quarters and dimes would soon lose their silver content. Because of this, many collectors view 1964 coins as part of the last chapter of an older era in U.S. coin production. They represent a time when coins were still made with traditional metal compositions and were produced using methods that had remained largely unchanged for decades. Another fun detail is that millions of Americans unknowingly saved coins from the 1960s in jars, drawers, and piggy banks. Even today, it's still possible to find a 1964D penny in circulation or hidden inside old coin collections. That sense of possibility is part of what keeps coin collectors searching through rolls of pennies, hoping to discover a hidden treasure. For serious collectors, the appeal of the 1964D Lincoln penny goes beyond its potential value. It's also about history. Each coin represents a small piece of the American economy from more than 60 years ago. It passed through stores, banks, and countless hands before possibly ending up in someone's collection. Collectors also appreciate the craftsmanship of these older copper coins. When you hold one under good lighting, you can see the detailed lines in Lincoln's portrait and the architecture of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. These tiny artistic elements remind us that coins are not just currency. They are miniature pieces of art. Today, the hunt for valuable pennies continues. Online marketplaces, coin shows, and major auctions still feature high-grade examples of the 1964D Lincoln. Professional grading services carefully examine coins to determine their authenticity and condition, helping collectors understand exactly what they have. But perhaps the most exciting part is that valuable coins don't always come from expensive collections. Sometimes they appear in everyday places. A coin jar on a kitchen shelf, an old piggy bank in the attic, or a forgotten roll of pennies from the bank could contain a piece of history waiting to be discovered. The next time you see a penny dated 1964 with a small D beneath the year, take a closer look. That tiny mark connects the coin to the Denver Mint and to a moment in American history when billions of copper pennies were produced to keep the country moving. Most of these coins will remain simple 1-cent pieces. But a few rare examples, especially those with beautiful red color or unusual mint errors, can be worth far more than their humble face value. And that is the fascinating mystery of the 1964D Lincoln penny. A coin that many people overlook, yet one that continues to capture the attention of collectors across the country. So before you spend your next penny, pause for a moment and check the date, because hidden among the ordinary coins in circulation could be a small copper treasure that has been quietly traveling through history for more than half a century. Welcome back. Imagine reaching into your pocket and pulling out a simple penny that most people would ignore without a second thought. Now imagine that same penny quietly holding a story that stretches across American history. A story that collectors and coin hunters still talk about decades later. Today we're exploring one of those fascinating coins, the 1970D Mint Mark Lincoln penny. At first glance it looks like just another small copper coin, but when you start to understand its background, its design, and the small details that collectors search for, this ordinary penny becomes far more interesting than you might expect. The 1970 Lincoln penny was produced at the Denver Mint during a time when the United States was experiencing major social and economic changes. Coins might seem small compared to the events of the era, but they were still an important part of everyday American life. The Lincoln cent itself had already been around for more than 60 years by 1970. It was first introduced in 1909 to celebrate the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln. Before that time, it was unusual for an American coin to feature a real historical figure, but Lincoln's image quickly became one of the most recognized designs in U.S. coinage. By the year 1970, the Lincoln penny still carried the classic portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front. This design was created by the sculptor Victor David Brenner. If you look closely at the coin, you'll see Lincoln facing to the right, with the word Liberty to the left and the date on the right. Above Lincoln's head appears the phrase "In God We Trust." These elements have become familiar to generations of Americans who have handled pennies in everyday transactions. The small letter D under the date is what tells us the coin was minted in Denver, Colorado. During that year, the Denver Mint produced more than 2 billion Lincoln pennies. That number may sound enormous, and it is, but within those billions of coins are tiny variations, mistakes, and special examples that collectors pay close attention to today. The reverse side of the 1970 penny features the famous wheat ears design that had been used for decades. Actually, this is where the story becomes especially interesting. The 1970 penny was part of the transition between two different designs. In 1959, the United States Mint replaced the wheat ears with the Lincoln Memorial design on the back. By 1970, the Lincoln Memorial was the standard reverse. If you turn the coin over, you'll see the image of the Lincoln Memorial Building in Washington, D.C., with the words United States of America above it and 1 cent below. The coin itself is made mostly of copper. In fact, the 1970 Lincoln penny is composed of about 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin. This gives the coin its familiar reddish color when it is new. Over time, many of these coins darken into a brown tone as the metal reacts with air and moisture. Collectors often classify pennies by their color, calling them red, red-brown, or brown depending on how much of the original copper color remains. One of the most exciting parts of coin collecting is searching for small differences that can make a coin far more valuable than its face value. With the 1970 penny, collectors often look for specific varieties and errors. These tiny variations might only be visible under magnification, but they can dramatically change how much the coin is worth. For example, collectors sometimes examine the date and lettering carefully to see if there are signs of doubling. A double die happens when the design is stamped onto the coin with a slight misalignment during the minting process. This can cause letters or numbers to appear slightly doubled. While not every 1970 penny has this feature, examples with noticeable doubling can attract strong interest from collectors. Another detail collectors examine is the sharpness of the design. Coins that were struck with strong pressure often show very clear details in Lincoln's hair and in the tiny columns of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. Coins with strong strikes and minimal wear are considered much more desirable. Condition plays a huge role in the value of any coin, including the 1970 Lincoln penny. Many of these coins circulated for years in everyday commerce. They passed through grocery stores, gas stations, vending machines, and countless pockets and purses. Because of this, most surviving examples today show signs of wear. The surfaces may be scratched, the details softened, and the color faded. However, coins that were saved early and kept in excellent condition are a different story. A 1970 penny that still shows its bright red copper color and sharp details can be surprisingly valuable to collectors. These high-grade coins are often graded and certified by professional coin grading services, which carefully evaluate their condition using a standardized scale and average circulated condition. A 1970 penny is usually worth only a few cents. But when you begin looking at higher grades, the value can increase quickly. For example, coins graded in mint condition, meaning they were never used in circulation, can sell for several dollars or even more depending on their quality. Some of the best preserved examples have sold for far higher prices. A top-quality 1970 Lincoln penny with full red color and exceptional detail has been known to sell for hundreds of dollars at auction. While these examples are rare, they demonstrate how a small coin that once represented just 1 cent can become a prized collectible. For collectors, identifying an authentic 1970 penny is usually straightforward, but there are still a few things to keep in mind. First, always check the date carefully. It should clearly read 1970, with a small D mint mark just below the date. The letters and numbers should look sharp and consistent with official U.S. mint designs. Next, examine the overall appearance of the coin. Genuine copper pennies from this era have a specific weight of about 3.11 grams. If a coin feels unusually light or heavy, it could indicate damage or alteration. The color and texture should also match what you would expect from a copper coin of that age. Magnification can also help when searching for valuable varieties. Many collectors use small coin loupes or magnifying glasses to inspect the date, lettering, and Lincoln's portrait. Even tiny differences can sometimes signal a rare variety. Another interesting detail about the 1970 penny is how it reflects a moment in American minting history. During the late 1960s and early 1970s, the demand for coins was extremely high. The U.S. Mint was working hard to produce enough coins for everyday use. This massive production sometimes led to small variations or striking differences that collectors study today. The Lincoln penny itself has become one of the most widely collected coins in the United States. Part of the reason is that it is so accessible. Almost everyone has handled pennies, and many people have searched through their spare change hoping to find something rare. The 1970 penny represents the kind of coin that reminds collectors that valuable discoveries can still happen in ordinary places. There are also a few fun facts about Lincoln pennies that many people don't realize. For example, if you look closely at the Lincoln Memorial on the back of the coin, you can actually see a tiny image of Lincoln's statue inside the building. This means the coin technically shows Lincoln twice, once on the front and once on the back. It's a small detail, but it shows the careful design work that went into the coin. Another surprising detail is how many people unknowingly keep old pennies in jars or drawers for years. Sometimes these forgotten collections include coins from the 1960s and 1970s that are still in excellent condition. When collectors search through these coins, they occasionally discover high-grade examples that have been hidden away for decades. Collectors today love the 1970 Lincoln penny for several reasons. It represents a classic era of American coinage when pennies were still made mostly of copper. It connects to the long history of the Lincoln cent, one of the most iconic coins in the country. And it offers the excitement of searching for small details that might reveal a rare and valuable example. For many collectors, the joy isn't just in the value of the coin but in the story it tells. Each penny has traveled through countless hands and places before finally being noticed by someone curious enough to look a little closer. That sense of discovery is what keeps the hobby alive generation after generation, so the next time you come across a penny from 1970 with a small D mint mark under the date, take a moment to examine it. Look at Lincoln's portrait, study the details of the memorial, and notice the rich copper color that has survived for more than half a century. What might appear to be a simple coin could actually be a small piece of history. And who knows, somewhere out there, perhaps in a jar of spare change or an old coin album, a perfectly preserved 1970 Lincoln penny might still be waiting to be discovered. For collectors, that possibility is what makes every coin worth a closer look. Welcome back. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a simple penny, and realizing that the tiny coin in your hand might hold a story stretching back more than 50 years. Most people barely notice pennies anymore. They toss them into jars, leave them in cup holders, or forget them in drawers. But sometimes, a small copper coin can turn out to be far more interesting than it looks. And one coin that has quietly captured the attention of collectors for decades is the 1971 mint mark Lincoln penny. At first glance, the 1971 Lincoln penny looks very similar to other pennies from the same era. It features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front, a design that has been part of American coinage since 1909. On the back, you see the Lincoln Memorial, the same design that appeared on pennies from 1959 until 2008. But what makes the 1971 penny different is the small letter just below the date. That tiny letter S tells us the coin was minted in San Francisco. To understand why this coin matters, it helps to go back to the early 1970s. The United States Mint was producing billions of coins each year to keep up with a growing economy. Pennies were still widely used in daily transactions, and they were made primarily from copper. In 1971, Pennies were composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc. This gave them their warm reddish color and a slightly heavier feel compared to modern pennies. The San Francisco Mint had a special role during this time. While the Philadelphia and Denver mints produced most of the coins for circulation, San Francisco focused heavily on proof coins. Proof coins are specially made coins created for collectors. They are struck with extra care using polished dies and specially prepared coin blanks. The result is a coin with mirror-like fields and sharp, detailed designs. In 1971, the San Francisco Mint produced proof Lincoln pennies marked with the S Mint mark. These coins were not intended for everyday spending. Instead, they were sold as part of proof sets to collectors who wanted beautifully crafted examples of each coin from that year. One of the most fascinating things about the 1971 S Lincoln penny is the quality of its design. On the front of the coin, Abraham Lincoln's portrait was originally created by sculptor Victor David Brenner. His initials, VDB, appear subtly on the lower edge of the design. Lincoln's profile faces right, with the word liberty to the left and the phrase "I in God we trust" above his head. The date 1971 appears to the right, followed by the small but important S Mint mark. On the reverse side, the Lincoln Memorial design was created by Frank Gasparo. If you look closely at the center of the memorial, you can actually see a tiny representation of Lincoln's statue inside the building. It's a remarkable detail for such a small coin. But collectors are not just interested in the design. What really captures their attention are the variations and errors that can appear on coins. Even with careful production, small mistakes sometimes happen during the minting process. And those mistakes can turn an ordinary coin into something truly special. With the 1971 S Lincoln penny, one of the most talked about variations is the proof coin with a double die. A double die occurs when the design is accidentally impressed onto the coin die more than once at slightly different angles. When coins are struck with that die, certain letters or numbers appear slightly doubled on some 1971 S proof pennies. Collectors have discovered subtle doubling in parts of the design, especially in lettering. These doubled features may be small, but they are enough to excite collectors who search carefully through proof sets looking for these varieties. Another important feature collectors pay attention to is the finish of the coin. Proof coins from San Francisco often have what is known as a cameo or deep cameo appearance. In these coins, the raised parts of the design look frosted, while the flat background surfaces are highly reflective. This contrast creates a striking visual effect that collectors love. Now you might be wondering how valuable a 1971 S Lincoln penny can actually be. In most cases, a regular circulated penny from that year is only worth a few cents. But proof coins in excellent condition can be worth much more. High-grade examples that still have their original shine and perfect surfaces are the ones collectors want the most. For example, a well-preserved 1971 S proof penny with strong cameo contrast can sell for dozens of dollars. If the coin is graded at a very high level by professional grading services, its value can rise significantly. Some top-quality deep cameo examples have sold for over $100 at auctions. And when it comes to rare varieties like double dies, the prices can climb even higher. Collectors are willing to pay a premium for coins that show clear and unusual minting characteristics. In some cases, a rare proof variety from 1971S can reach several $100s depending on its condition and rarity. Of course, not every 1971S penny will be valuable. Condition plays a huge role in determining a coin's worth. Coins that are scratched, worn, or damaged are usually worth much less than coins that have been carefully preserved. That is why collectors handle coins gently and often store them in protective holders. If you think you might have a 1971 S Lincoln penny, there are a few simple ways to identify it. First, look directly under the date on the front of the coin. If you see the small letter S, that means it was minted in San Francisco. Next, examine the surface of the coin. Proof coins usually have a mirror-like shine that is much brighter than normal circulation coins. You can also check the details of the lettering and numbers using a magnifying glass. Look closely for any signs of doubling, especially in the date or the words around the coin. Even small differences can make a big impact for collectors. Another important step is verifying authenticity. Genuine proof coins usually come from official proof sets issued by the United States Mint. These sets were sold in protective packaging designed to preserve the coins. If you find a coin that looks like a proof but appears worn or damaged, it may have been removed from its original holder at some point. Professional grading companies can also help confirm whether a coin is authentic and determine its condition. They examine the coin carefully, assign it a grade, and seal it inside a protective holder. Coins that receive very high grades often become much more attractive to collectors. There are also some interesting facts about the 1971 Lincoln penny that many people don't realize. For instance, the San Francisco Mint produced millions of proof pennies that year, but only a portion of them survived in perfect condition. Over time, many proof coins were mishandled, scratched, or exposed to air that caused discoloration. Another surprising detail is how much effort collectors put into searching for perfect examples. Some collectors spend years examining proof sets from the 1970s, hoping to find coins with exceptional cameo contrast or rare die varieties. The thrill of discovering something special keeps the hobby exciting. For many collectors, the 1971 Lincoln penny represents a moment in American coin history when craftsmanship and tradition came together. The copper composition, the classic Lincoln portrait, and the careful proof striking process all make this coin a beautiful piece of numismatic art. Today, collectors continue to search for high-quality examples of this penny. Some enjoy building complete sets of Lincoln cents from different years and mints. Others focus specifically on proof coins from San Francisco. Either way, the 1971 penny remains a popular piece in many collections. What makes coin collecting so fascinating is that every coin carries a story. A penny might pass through countless hands over the years, traveling across cities and states, quietly witnessing moments of everyday life. Yet the same coin might eventually end up in a collector's album, where its history and craftsmanship are finally appreciated. So the next time you see an old penny, take a closer look. Check the date, look for a mint mark, and examine the details carefully. You never know what you might discover hiding in plain sight. Because sometimes, a tiny coin from 1971, marked with a simple letter S, can open the door to a much bigger story about American history, minting technology, and the passion of collectors who continue searching for treasures in the smallest places. Welcome back. Imagine finding a small copper-colored penny in your pocket change that most people would ignore without a second thought. Now imagine that same ordinary-looking coin turning out to be a collectible piece of American history that collectors actively search for. Today we are exploring the story of the 1975 D-Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that millions of Americans have seen, but very few have truly understood. The 1975 D. Lincoln penny is part of the long-running Lincoln cent series, one of the most recognizable coins ever produced in the United States. This coin features the familiar portrait of President Abraham Lincoln on the front, a design that first appeared in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. By 1975, the Lincoln cent had already been circulating in American pockets for more than 60 years, quietly witnessing decades of history. The small letter D on this penny tells an important part of its story. That mint mark means the coin was produced at the Denver Mint. In 1975, the United States Mint was working hard to produce enough coins for everyday commerce. The economy was growing, inflation was affecting prices, and Americans needed huge numbers of coins for daily transactions. Because of this demand, the Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of Lincoln pennies that year. At first glance, the 1975 D penny looks like a typical coin from the 1970s. The front shows Abraham Lincoln facing right, along with the words "In God We Trust" above his head, the word "Liberty" to the left, and the year 1975 to the right. Just below the date sits the small D mint mark that identifies Denver as the place of production. On the reverse side, the coin features the classic wheat successor design known as the Lincoln Memorial Reverse. This design was introduced in 1959 and remained in use until 2008. The Lincoln Memorial Building appears in the center, with the words United States of America and E Pluribus Unum above it, and 1 cent proudly displayed below. If you look closely at some well-preserved examples, you can even see a tiny image of Lincoln's statue inside the memorial. But what truly makes the 1975 D penny interesting is not just its design. It is the details that collectors search for. Most of these coins were made from a mixture of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin. the standard composition used for pennies before the major metal change that occurred in 1982. Because of this copper content, each coin has a warm reddish tone when it is well preserved. While millions of these pennies were produced, condition is what separates an ordinary coin from a valuable one. Many 1975 D pennies spent decades moving through cash registers, vending machines, and jars of spare change. Over time, they became scratched, faded, or darkened. But a small number survived in exceptional condition, and those are the coins collectors pay attention to today. One of the most fascinating aspects of coin collecting is the search for minting errors, and the 1975 D penny is no exception. During the coin production process, small mechanical mistakes sometimes happen. These mistakes can create unusual variations that collectors love to find. For example, some 1975 D pennies show what collectors call a double die effect. This happens when the design is stamped in a way that creates a slight doubling in certain letters or numbers. When viewed under magnification, you might notice the date or parts of the lettering appearing slightly doubled. While these errors are not extremely common, they are highly desirable among collectors who specialize in mint varieties. Another interesting possibility is the presence of off-center strikes. This occurs when the blank coin planchet is not perfectly aligned during the striking process. As a result, part of the design may be shifted toward the edge, leaving a blank crescent-shaped area on one side. Coins with dramatic off-center strikes can attract significant attention from collectors. There are also cases where pennies from this year display die cracks or small raised lines caused by worn minting equipment. While these details might seem like flaws at first glance, collectors often see them as unique characteristics that make a coin more interesting. So, how valuable can a 1975 D Lincoln penny actually be? In most circulated condition, these coins are still worth only a few cents more than face value. However, when a coin is found in exceptional uncirculated condition, its value can rise significantly. Coins graded in mint state condition, especially those with bright red copper surfaces, are the most desirable. Professional coin grading services evaluate these coins on a scale that measures how well preserved they are. A top-grade example with sharp details and original red color can sell for hundreds of dollars to the right collector. Some auction records show high-grade 1975 D pennies selling for impressive prices when the condition is nearly perfect. A coin graded at the very top levels of preservation can reach values that surprise people who once thought pennies were nearly worthless. Error coins from this year can sometimes bring even more attention. A clearly visible double die, a dramatic off-center strike, or another unusual minting mistake can transform a common coin into a collectible item that enthusiasts are eager to add to their collections. If you are curious whether you might have a valuable 1975 D penny, the first step is learning how to examine the coin carefully. Start by looking at the date and mint mark under good lighting. The small d should appear just below the year. Next, examine the overall condition. Coins with sharp details, minimal scratches, and original reddish color are usually more desirable. Using a magnifying glass can also help reveal small details that are easy to miss with the naked eye. Look closely at the lettering, the date, and Lincoln's portrait for signs of doubling or unusual marks. Pay attention to the edges of the design, since many error varieties become visible in these areas. Another important tip is to avoid cleaning old coins. Many people think cleaning will improve the appearance, but it actually damages the surface and reduces collector value. Experienced collectors prefer coins that remain in their original, untouched condition. Authenticity is also important. While counterfeit pennies are less common than fake gold or silver coins, altered coins do exist. Sometimes people try to modify coins to imitate rare varieties. For this reason, valuable coins are often sent to professional grading companies that can confirm authenticity and assign an official grade. Beyond its potential value, the 1975 D penny also carries fascinating historical context. The mid-1970s were an interesting time in American history. The country was approaching the bicentennial celebration of 1976, marking 200 years since the Declaration of Independence. During this period, the United States Mint was preparing special commemorative coin designs while still producing the everyday coins Americans relied on. The Lincoln penny continued to serve as one of the most widely used coins in circulation. Even though its purchasing power had declined compared to earlier decades, it remained a familiar and symbolic part of American currency. Here is another surprising detail. Many people overlook the tiny artistic elements hidden in the coin's design. If you examine the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse side closely, you can actually see a miniature image of Lincoln seated inside the building. This tiny detail makes the Lincoln cent one of the few coins in the world that features the same person on both sides of the coin. Collectors also enjoy tracking subtle changes in color that happen over time. Copper coins gradually change from bright red to reddish brown and eventually to deep brown as they age. A 1975 D penny that still shows its original red color after decades is often considered especially desirable. Today, collectors continue searching through old coin jars, bank rolls, and inherited collections hoping to find hidden gems. The excitement of coin collecting comes from the possibility that an overlooked coin might turn out to be something special. The 1975 D Lincoln penny represents exactly that kind of possibility. It reminds us that even the most ordinary objects can hold unexpected stories. A coin that once passed quietly from one hand to another might now be examined carefully by collectors who appreciate its history and its connection to a specific moment in time. For many enthusiasts, collecting coins is not just about money. It is about discovery. Each coin carries the marks of its journey, from the moment it was struck at the mint to the decades it spent in circulation. Every scratch, tone, and detail becomes part of that story. And that is why the 1975 D Lincoln penny still captures attention today. It is a small piece of copper that connects everyday life with history, craftsmanship, and the thrill of the hunt, so the next time you come across a penny in your change, take a moment before you toss it aside. Look at the date. Check for that small mint mark. Because hidden among millions of ordinary coins, there is always a chance that one small detail could turn a simple penny into something truly remarkable. And sometimes, the most valuable discoveries begin with the coins we almost ignored. Welcome back. Imagine holding a coin in your hand that looks ordinary at first glance. Just a small, copper-colored piece of metal, something you might find in your pocket or in a jar of loose change. But what if I told you that a coin minted in 1979 could hold secrets that make it far more fascinating than its everyday appearance suggests? Today, we're diving into the story of the 1979 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that quietly captures the attention of collectors and history enthusiasts alike. This tiny piece of currency carries a story that stretches from the heart of American coinage history to the eyes of devoted collectors searching for hidden treasures. The 1979 Lincoln penny is part of a long line of 1-cent coins honoring Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. The Lincoln penny, first introduced in 1909 to commemorate Lincoln's 100th birthday, was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person rather than a symbolic representation. By 1979, the penny had undergone several design updates, but remained a familiar sight in every American pocket. The coin we're discussing today was minted without a mint mark, which means it was produced at the Philadelphia Mint, the oldest and one of the most prominent coin production facilities in the United States. While the absence of a mint mark might seem like a minor detail, it plays a significant role in understanding the coin's rarity and value. 1979 was an interesting year for the Lincoln penny. The United States was experiencing economic shifts, inflation concerns, and changes in copper prices that affected coin production. That year, pennies were primarily composed of a copper-plated zinc alloy, a composition that had been standard since 1962. The coin features the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, designed by Victor David Brenner, showing Lincoln in a dignified pose, looking contemplative yet resolute. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial design, introduced in 1959 to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, graces the coin. For many Americans, this design was iconic, a symbol of unity, resilience, and the enduring legacy of Lincoln's leadership. What makes the 1979 no-mint mark Lincoln penny particularly intriguing are the subtle details that differentiate it from its more common counterparts. While the majority of pennies from that year carry either a D for Denver or an S for San Francisco, the Philadelphia coins lack any mint mark. This small absence can create a sense of curiosity among collectors. Beyond the mint mark, certain errors and varieties can elevate a coin's significance. For example, some 1979 pennies were struck with double dies, where the image or lettering appears slightly doubled, a flaw that occurred during the minting process. Coins with this type of error are especially sought after because they are accidental anomalies, not mass-produced features, and each one tells a story of the minting process itself. Now, you might be wondering why a 1979 penny, something that most people see as common, could be considered rare or valuable. The truth is, most 1979 pennies are not particularly valuable when found in circulated condition. They are abundant and millions were minted. However, coins that are in pristine, uncirculated condition, often graded by professional services as MS-65 or higher, can command higher prices in the collector's market. Additionally, any penny from 1979 with noticeable errors, such as the double die I mentioned, a missing or weak strike on Lincoln's profile, or even unusual color variations due to striking or storage, can fetch significant attention and monetary value. For collectors, rarity isn't just about age. It's about condition, uniqueness, and historical context. To give you an idea, examples of high-grade 1979 no-mint mark Lincoln pennies have sold at auction for anywhere from $20 to a few $100s, depending on their condition. Coins with confirmed double die errors or exceptional luster can exceed that, reaching several hundred or even $1,000 if perfectly preserved. These coins are not just currency. They are artifacts, little windows into the history of American coinage and the craft of minting. When collectors invest in these coins, they're purchasing more than metal. They're acquiring a piece of history. Identifying a genuine 1979 no-mint mark Lincoln penny requires careful attention to detail. First, check the absence of a mint mark above the date on the obverse. Make sure the coin matches the standard design features of that year. Lincoln's profile should be sharp and well-defined, and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse should display all its fine details, including the tiny statue visible between the columns if you look closely. Authentic coins should have consistent weight and metallic composition. If you encounter a coin that seems unusually heavy, light, or has a color that doesn't match typical copper-plated zinc, it may warrant further examination. For rare error varieties, magnification is essential. Minor doubling of letters or numerals can be almost invisible to the naked eye but can dramatically increase the coin's desirability. Professional grading and authentication are highly recommended for anyone considering buying, selling, or collecting these coins seriously. There are also some fascinating quirks and fun facts about the 1979 penny that make it more than just a piece of currency. One of the surprising details is how resilient these coins have been. Despite circulating for decades, many retain their original luster, especially those kept in protective collections. The penny has also been part of broader historical moments. In the late 1970s, pennies were used daily in an economy that was experiencing inflation, yet the design of Lincoln provided a sense of stability and continuity. Collectors often remark that holding a coin from this era feels like touching a small piece of living history. Additionally, the Lincoln penny's continued design consistency over the years allows collectors to trace subtle changes in minting technology and artistic interpretation, which is a quiet but fascinating aspect of numismatic study. Collectors are drawn to the 1979 no-mint mark Lincoln penny not only for its potential value but also for the stories it carries. Each coin is a tiny ambassador from the Philadelphia Mint, a testament to craftsmanship, history, and American heritage. Collectors appreciate the subtle differences between coins from different mints, and the Philadelphia coins, often overlooked due to the lack of a mint mark, offer an interesting challenge. Finding one in exceptional condition feels like discovering a secret connection to the past, a moment frozen in metal that has survived decades of handling, circulation, and time. For many, the joy comes from the hunt itself, the thrill of finding a coin that stands out, whether due to its condition, a rare error, or simply its untouched luster. The 1979 no-mint mark Lincoln penny reminds us that value is not always obvious at first glance. What seems ordinary can hold hidden significance. It teaches collectors and casual observers alike to look closer, to appreciate the artistry and history embedded in everyday objects. The coin encourages curiosity, prompting us to wonder about the stories of the people who handled it, the hands it passed through, and the moments in history it quietly witnessed. It is a reminder that even the smallest items can carry immense historical weight and emotional resonance. So next time you pick up a penny, think about what it might represent. The 1979 Lincoln penny without a mint mark may appear simple, but for those who know its story, it is a treasure worth exploring. Whether you are a seasoned collector, someone casually interested in coins, or simply a curious observer of history, this coin offers a small but powerful connection to the past. It invites you to ask questions, to investigate details, and to appreciate the artistry that goes into even the humblest objects. There is always more than meets the eye, and the 1979 no-mint mark Lincoln penny proves it. Who knows what hidden stories might be waiting in your pocket change? Welcome back. Imagine reaching into your pocket and pulling out a penny that most people would ignore. It looks ordinary, worn from years of circulation, and worth only 1 cent. But what if that small copper coin held a story connected to American history, hidden minting details, and even the possibility of surprising collector value? Today we're exploring the 1984 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that millions of people have seen but very few have truly looked at closely. The 1984 Lincoln penny is part of the long-running Lincoln cent series, one of the most recognizable coins in the United States. The Lincoln penny was first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln. Before that year, U.S. coins rarely featured real historical figures. But Lincoln's legacy was so important to the nation that the U.S. Mint decided to place his portrait on the 1-cent coin, creating a design that would last for generations. By the time 1984 arrived, the Lincoln cent had already been in circulation for 75 years. The design on the front of the coin, called the obverse, features the famous portrait of Abraham Lincoln created by sculptor Victor David Brenner. His initials, VDB, appear subtly on the coin as a mark of the designer. On the back of the 1984 penny, you see the classic wheat-era replacement design known as the Lincoln Memorial Reverse. This design was introduced in 1959 to celebrate Lincoln's 150th birthday. The image shows the Lincoln Memorial Building in Washington, D.C., and if you look very closely at a well-preserved coin, you can even see a tiny statue of Lincoln sitting inside the memorial. Now, one detail that often confuses people is the missing mint mark. When a coin shows no mint mark at all, it usually means it was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. For most of the 20th century, coins from Philadelphia did not carry a mint mark. So the 1984 Lincoln penny with no mint mark was struck in Philadelphia, one of the oldest and most historic mints in the United States. In 1984, the United States Mint produced billions of pennies because the 1-cent coin was still widely used in everyday transactions. These coins were needed for cash purchases, vending machines, and banking circulation. Because of that massive production, most 1984 pennies are extremely common. However, as collectors know, sometimes the most interesting coins are hidden among the most ordinary ones. One reason the 1984 penny draws attention is because of the metal composition used during that era. Before 1982, pennies were mostly made of copper. But rising copper prices forced the U.S. Mint to change the metal mixture. Starting in mid-1982, Lincoln pennies were produced using a zinc core with a thin copper coating. By 1984, all standard pennies were made with this copper-plated zinc composition. The coin weighs about 2.5 grams and has a bright copper color when new, though many darken over time due to oxidation and circulation. The design details on the 1984 Lincoln penny remain simple yet iconic. On the front, Lincoln faces right, with the word Liberty to his left and the year 1984 to the right. Above his head is the national motto, "In God We Trust." On the reverse side, the Lincoln Memorial stands proudly in the center, with the words United States of America and E Pluribus Unum above, and 1 cent below. While millions of these coins were produced, collectors became interested in the 1984 penny because of a particular minting error that occasionally appears. This error is known as the doubled ear variety. On certain 1984 pennies, Lincoln's ear appears slightly doubled, creating a visible extra outline or shadow effect. This happened during the die creation process, when the design was accidentally imprinted twice at slightly different angles. The result is a coin that shows a noticeable doubling around Lincoln's ear. This small detail might seem minor, but for coin collectors it makes a huge difference. The 1984 doubled ear penny has become one of the most famous modern Lincoln cent varieties. When collectors discover one in good condition, it can be worth far more than 1 cent. For example, circulated examples of the 1984 doubled ear penny have sold for dozens or even hundreds of dollars depending on condition. Coins that remain in excellent uncirculated condition can reach several $100s in auctions. In rare cases where the coin is graded at a very high level by professional grading services, the value can climb even higher, attracting serious collectors who specialize in Lincoln cent varieties. It's important to understand that not every 1984 penny without a mint mark is valuable. Most are common circulation coins worth only face value. But the key is identifying the special varieties and preserving coins that remain in excellent condition. Even a small difference in quality can dramatically change a coin's collector value. If you want to check whether you might have a valuable 1984 penny, there are a few things you can look for. First, examine Lincoln's ear closely using a magnifying glass or coin loupe. On the doubled ear variety, the ear will show a clear secondary outline, almost like a shadow beside it. This doubling is not caused by wear or damage. It was created during the minting process. Second, check the overall condition of the coin. Coins with sharp details, strong color, and minimal scratches are far more desirable to collectors. A bright, uncirculated penny that has never been heavily used will always attract more attention than a worn example that has spent decades passing through cash registers. Third, consider having the coin professionally graded if you believe you have a strong example. Professional grading companies evaluate coins for authenticity and condition, sealing them in protective holders that also display the official grade. This process can help buyers trust the coin's quality and often increases its market value. Another fascinating detail about the 1984 Lincoln penny is how easily it can hide in everyday pocket change. Because billions were made, many people have handled these coins without realizing that a rare variety might be sitting right in their coin jar or piggy bank. Stories occasionally appear of collectors discovering valuable doubled ear pennies in rolls of coins from the bank or even in old family collections. There are also a few misconceptions surrounding this coin. Some people believe that the absence of a mint mark automatically means the coin is rare. In reality, the Philadelphia Mint produced enormous numbers of pennies without mint marks during that period. The rarity usually comes from specific errors, varieties, or exceptional condition rather than the missing mint mark itself. Fun facts about the Lincoln penny add even more interest to this small coin. The Lincoln cent is the longest-running coin design in American history, appearing continuously since 1909 with only a few design updates. It has survived changes in metal composition, economic shifts, and debates about whether the penny should continue to exist at all. Another surprising detail is that if you look very closely at the Lincoln memorial design on older pennies like the 1984 version, you can actually see Lincoln twice on the same coin. His portrait appears on the front, and the tiny statue inside the memorial on the reverse shows him again. This makes the Lincoln cent one of the few coins in the world to feature the same person on both sides of the design. Collectors love the 1984 penny not because it is rare in general, but because it represents the thrill of the hunt. It reminds collectors that valuable discoveries can still be hiding in ordinary places. Unlike ancient coins locked away in museums, Lincoln cents continue to circulate in everyday life, creating the possibility that anyone could stumble upon a hidden treasure. For many hobbyists, searching through pennies becomes a relaxing and exciting activity. Coin rolls from banks, old jars of change, and inherited collections all hold potential surprises. Each coin tells a story about the time it was made and the journey it has taken through countless hands across the country. The 1984 Lincoln penny also reflects a transitional era in U.S. coinage. The switch from solid copper to copper-plated zinc had recently occurred, marking an important shift in how coins were produced. Rising metal prices forced the mint to adapt, and the pennies of the 1980s show the beginning of the modern composition still used today. Over time, coins like the 1984 penny also become historical artifacts. They represent everyday commerce during the early 1980s, a time of economic change, new technology, and evolving American culture. Even though the coin itself is small, it carries a connection to that moment in history, so the next time you see a penny from 1984 with no mint mark, take a closer look before tossing it aside. Examine Lincoln's ear, study the details, and consider the possibility that you might be holding more than just spare change. For collectors, the excitement is never only about the money. It's about discovery, history, and the thrill of finding something special in the most unexpected place. And that is the fascinating story of the 1984 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. a coin that most people overlook, yet one that continues to spark curiosity among collectors and everyday treasure hunters alike. The next valuable coin might already be sitting quietly in a jar, waiting for someone curious enough to notice it. Welcome back. Imagine picking up a penny from the sidewalk and realizing that it might be far more than just a small piece of metal. What if I told you that a coin you might already have in your pocket could be worth hundreds, even thousands of dollars to the right collector? Today, we're exploring the 2002 Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that seems ordinary at first glance but hides a fascinating story that has captured the attention of collectors across the United States. From its origins to its unique characteristics, we're going to uncover what makes this penny a hidden gem and why it continues to intrigue coin enthusiasts decades after it was first minted. The 2002 Lincoln penny is part of a long line of coins honoring one of America's most beloved presidents, Abraham Lincoln. These pennies carry the Lincoln design first introduced in 1909 to commemorate his 100th birthday, making Lincoln the first historical figure to appear on a regular United States coin. By 2002, the Lincoln penny had been in circulation for nearly a century, evolving through subtle design changes and minting improvements. The D Mint mark on this penny signifies that it was produced at the Denver Mint, one of the primary facilities responsible for striking coins for circulation. While many pennies are minted each year, some issues and variations become noteworthy to collectors due to rarity, errors, or unique characteristics, and the 2002 penny has earned a special place in that category. The story of the 2002 penny begins with the U.S. Mint's ongoing efforts to produce coins efficiently while maintaining consistent quality. In 2002, the economy was stable, and pennies remained a staple of everyday transactions. The coin itself measures 19.05 millimeters in diameter and is composed primarily of copper-plated zinc, a composition that had been standard since 1982. This shift from solid copper to copper-plated zinc was made to reduce production costs while preserving the penny's familiar appearance. Despite its modest materials, the 2002 penny carries the rich symbolism of Lincoln's legacy. The obverse, or front, features the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner, while the reverse, known as the Lincoln Memorial design, showcases the iconic monument in Washington, D.C. It's a design that Americans recognize instantly, connecting the coin to national history and pride. What sets the 2002 Lincoln penny apart, and why collectors pay attention, is not just its design but the subtle anomalies that sometimes appear during the minting process. Errors can occur in millions of coins, but certain types are particularly sought after. For the 2002 penny, collectors often look for double die errors, where the design elements appear slightly duplicated, or off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing or misaligned. Even slight variations in the placement of the mint mark or imperfections in the lettering can dramatically increase a penny's value. These are not always obvious at first glance, but careful examination with a magnifying glass can reveal the differences that turn an ordinary coin into a rare collectible point. One of the most intriguing aspects of the 2002 penny is how it demonstrates the subtle art of coin collecting. While billions of pennies were minted in 2002, only a small fraction display the kinds of anomalies that attract collectors' attention. Some 2002 pennies have been noted for their strong strike quality, sharp details, or unusually vibrant copper color, all of which contribute to desirability. Collectors are also interested in the coin's condition or grade. A penny that has circulated heavily will never reach the same value as one preserved in mint state condition, untouched by time or handling. In some cases, a 2002 penny in near-perfect condition with a rare error can fetch hundreds of dollars at auction. A remarkable leap from its face value of just 1 cent. Real-world examples highlight just how significant these coins can be. At private auctions and specialized coin shows, a 2002 Lincoln penny with a visible double die or off-center strike has sold for amounts well beyond what casual collectors might expect. One well-preserved example with a noticeable double die on the obverse brought in nearly $500. Demonstrating the market's willingness to pay a premium for coins that exhibit these distinctive characteristics. Another example featured an off-center strike that cut through part of Lincoln's profile, and collectors valued it at over $600. These examples show that careful attention to detail and a keen eye can turn what seems like an everyday penny into a prized collectible. Identifying a genuine 2002 Lincoln penny is surprisingly straightforward once you know what to look for. Start with the mint mark. A Real Denver Mint coin will have a clear, small d, located below the date on the obverse side of the coin. Examine the coin under good lighting, checking for crisp details in Lincoln's profile, the lettering, and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. Errors like doubling, die cracks, or misalignment should be subtle but visible with magnification. Be cautious of counterfeit coins, which are rare but can appear in the market. Signs of a fake include inconsistencies in weight, unusual coloring, or sloppy details in the design. For anyone unsure, consulting a professional coin dealer or grading service can provide verification and peace of mind, especially if the coin appears to have rare features. Beyond its collectability, the 2002 Lincoln penny holds several fascinating details that might surprise even casual observers. Did you know that pennies from this era were still part of everyday commerce? Despite debates about the usefulness of the 1-cent coin, many Americans have unknowingly passed valuable coins to friends, family, or even vending machines. Additionally, the 2002 penny represents a transitional period in U.S. coinage, as the mint continued refining the copper-plated zinc formula to maintain durability while keeping costs low. Another surprising fact is that Lincoln's profile on the penny has remained virtually unchanged for more than a century, a testament to the enduring appeal of Brenner's design and the respect for the president's legacy. Collectors today cherish the 2002 penny not only for potential financial gain but also for the connection it provides to American history. Owning a coin like this is like holding a tiny piece of the past, a tangible link to the daily lives of people who used pennies decades ago. The coin is accessible, meaning new collectors can participate without the need for enormous budgets. Yet it offers the thrill of discovery, especially when a rare error is found. Enthusiasts often trade stories about hidden finds in jars of change or at garage sales, adding a sense of adventure to the hobby. The 2002 penny also illustrates the broader appeal of Lincoln pennies in general, which remain a cornerstone for collectors due to their historical significance and wide variety of errors and designs over the years. As we wrap up, consider this. Somewhere in your own wallet, jar, or coin collection, there could be a 2002 Lincoln penny waiting to be discovered. It might look ordinary, but with a careful eye, it could reveal details that make it rare, valuable, or historically interesting. Coins like this remind us that even the smallest objects can carry stories, connect us to the past, and spark curiosity about the world around us. The next time you handle a penny, take a moment to examine it closely. You never know if it might hold a secret worth exploring, a hidden treasure that connects you to collectors, history, and a tradition that has lasted more than a century. The 2002 Lincoln penny is more than just currency. It's a symbol of careful craftsmanship, historical tribute, and the thrill of discovery. Whether you're a seasoned collector or someone who enjoys the occasional hunt through coins, this penny represents the excitement of uncovering value where most people see only the everyday. Keep an eye out, pay attention to details, and remember that the smallest coin can sometimes tell the biggest story. You might think you're just holding a penny, but in reality, you could be holding a piece of history, a potential treasure, and a connection to generations of Americans who have passed this tiny coin through their hands. So next time you reach for change, take a closer look. That simple copper disc might be hiding more than you ever imagined, waiting to reveal its secrets to those who take the time to notice.